Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nature-Based Solutions course for policy and decision makers. This course is brought to you by the Diversity Project. Just for anyone who's not familiar with what diversity is, it's a 4-year project funded by the European Commission under the Horizon 2020 programme. And diversity addresses the equation of social inequality, health conditions, and air pollution in cities. The project is carried out by a consortium of 24 organisations, piloting solutions across 5 EU cities, which you can see here. So these are the 24 organisations that make up the consortium, which includes organisations from Europe and beyond. As part of the Diversity Project, they launched a twinning programme aiming to create a network of like-minded projects, cities and communities with the aim of circulating ideas, solutions and challenges. The programme operates at 3 levels, which was city to city, project to project and people to people. And for the city to city part of the programme, we've collaborated with 20 cities from around the globe, and you can see those listed here. So on to today's course. We have a wonderful panel of experts lined up for you today, who are all key members of the Diversity Consortium, who've been working across the project for the past 4 years. Each of them brings a wealth of experience in their field, and I'm confident you'll take away valuable insights from their experience today. Just a reminder that the event is being recorded, and just to run you through the logistics of the event. So we're going to have the first 2 sessions, and then there will be a short Q&A session. So please submit any questions that you have as we go along through the Q&A function. You'll find that button on your bottom menu of Zoom. And after that, we'll move into part 2, where we have 3 more sessions, also finishing with a Q&A. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce the first of our panelists today, Blanca Pedrola. Blanca is an urban researcher and practitioner with over 50 years of experience working across sustainability, urban innovation and design. Blanca has worked internationally in the US, Germany and the Netherlands, and is currently a lecturer in sustainable architecture and urban design at CEU in Valencia. Her work focuses on the ecological and social transformation of cities with a strong commitment to urban resilience and nature-based solutions. Blanca, over to you.
Thank you, Adele, for this really nice introduction. Today, I'm just going to share the concept of nature-based solutions from the perspective of an architect. As you mentioned, I am an architect, urban designer, and I would like to just share a few concepts. Probably most of you understand and know what are the nature-based solutions. Anyway, we will see it together and explore a few concepts. And I would like also to make a focus on the eco-social challenges that we're facing today. Well, it's nice to see here also in this slide an image of the artist Fabio Gomes, a Brazilian artist. He works to improve the environment, the landscape in cities by using nature in a different way in art. And this is also part of making beauty our cities and using nature. But let's go ahead and explore it together. Next, please, Adele. Okay, so we are in a moment today of facing social and environmental challenges. It's a moment in which we need to think differently how we build our cities, how we inhabit our cities, and how we probably change our pattern of behavior, and also how we think how we can do our cities, how we can transform our cities. So it's a moment of rebuilding, re-inhabit, and rethinking. Also coping with the new needs that we're facing today. So we're coping with heat stress. Probably most of you living in Europe at the moment, you're experiencing it right now. We are 8 degrees over the average temperature on the last years. So this is a reality that we're facing today. We're facing pollution, we're facing floods, we're facing lack of nature in the cities, we're facing lack of spaces for people in the city. And we're also thinking today how we can make also healthy cities. This image that you can see here is an image of the super block in Barcelona, in Poblenou. Next, please. So I introduce here an image of the, on the right, an image of the Green Infrastructure Plan of Barcelona. The line 2 of this plan is about renaturalization. And Barcelona is one example of many cities that are working today in this line, exploring the new urban model that can face with all these challenges that we have mentioned before. So I would say that the objective is to stop polluting, that's the first thing, recover space. As you see, this little scheme that you see on the middle of the slide, it's, so the base of the pyramid is cities mostly used by cars. They would use around 80% of the space in cities. Then we have more mobility, then we have people, and in the end of the pyramid, there's little space for the vulnerable populations. And we have to try to transform this into the opposite. So make cities for everyone, for all, taking into account the vulnerable population needs. And finally, also, we need to circulate and we need to a little bit of space for cars. So it's not about taking cars out, but it's about giving complexity and giving priorities to people. So as I was mentioning, stop polluting, recover space for people, and increasing and connecting urban greenery and promote community relationships. How we can do that? Nature-based solutions can help us a lot. And it's much more than adding trees and greenery, because they can provide us with all those eco-services, such as thermal comfort, water management, clean air, biodiversity. Plus, they can also create spaces for people that are safer, healthier, and more inclusive for everyone. So it's not only about increasing greenery, but it fundamentally means recovering healthy environmental conditions and a unique opportunity to enhance urban equity by meeting the needs of vulnerable populations. Next, please. During the project Diversity, we have been exploring the needs of vulnerable populations, or I would say of people. And here we have categorized by demographic groups. So we can see that elderly people, they have different needs for mobility. They need smooth paths, benches every once in a while, accessible transit. They need to have streets that are well lit, visible paths, etc., etc. Children, they need safe, stimulating play spaces, opportunity for nature exploration, safe routes to school and homes, etc., etc. Women, especially with caregiving responsibilities, they need personal safety, access to facilities such as toilets, for example. Young people, they also need opportunities for self-expression, active and affordable transport. Low-income communities, they might be looking for affordable and resilient infrastructure, urban farming, edible landscape. People with physical disabilities, they need universal access to all spaces, orientation and tactile navigation, accessible transport. And finally, neurodivergent individuals, they're looking for calm, low stimulation spaces, predictable, readable environments, safe and respectful, and public interactions. Here, what you see on the right, this image is an image from a project from the Eco District project, also funded by the European Commission. This is a pergola that was designed and built with the people. Specifically, each one of the piece of wood that cover the pergola was designed and painted by the children of the school nearby. And the green area that you see, it's a lower space that is managing waters. Before, it used to be a roundabout with no use. Sometimes there was a car parked in the middle. Now it's a space for people. So it's about recovering this space for people. Next, please. And now I'm going to go really fast over a few concepts about urban green. So first one is stop polluting and recover space for people. Here you see on the left an image of the parking day. So they have taken away a parking spot, and suddenly you see how people invade and uses the space for socializing and for relaxing and being closer to nature. On the right, you see an image of Barri de Sant Antoni in Barcelona, and we can see here how this renaturalization transformation of the city of Barcelona is taking place, and suddenly instead of cars, we see people using the city, moving around the city. Plus we know that traffic is responsible for 70% of CO2 emissions within the city. So if we promote these spaces, we allow people to walk or bike instead of using the car. Next, please. Another concept is little and frequent and also accessible. You see here on the left street in Haarlem, in the Netherlands in 1996. It's not that far away in time compared to 2023. So you see on the left a bunch of cars parked, no people. On the right, there's people using the space. On the right image, you see an image of St. Kilde Square in Copenhagen. And I really like this image because it's a roundabout, really beautiful roundabout, which feels like a little forest. And suddenly you see a mom strolling with her baby and using the city and being close to nature. So little and often is very good because we promote access to everyone. It's close to you instead of having a big space, a big green space, but it's very far away. So probably we don't use it. And this is also related to health. So it has been proven, for example, that children living next to a green space, they suffer less obesity, they have better grades in school, etc., etc. So there's a lot of science of the benefits of green spaces. Next, please. Connect it and make it part of the city infrastructure. So it's also about connection. As soon as we connect green spaces, then we are building also an infrastructure for biodiversity, also for climate resiliency, and of course for mobility, for people mobility. So then we're promoting again this connection by soft modes of transportation, such as cycling or walking, instead of using the car again. Next, please. Functional. So green is not only about ornamental or decorative function, but also they can have a function. For example, here on the left, you see a courtyard of a building in Copenhagen, in the neighborhood of Oosterbro, is the resilient neighborhood in Copenhagen. Before, it used to be for parking the bicycles and for garbage bins. Today, it's a space for people, space also for keeping their bikes, social space for celebrating birthdays and barbecues, but as well, it's a space for water management. And this is very important because it was also financed, even if it's a private space, it's financed by the government by the city of Copenhagen, because they really think that this is common good. It's good for everyone, that we are not using the public drainage. And I think it's a very good way to do it. On the right, you see the Imagine Montessori School here in Valencia. Beautiful building, beautiful school, recently built in the recent years. It has a green roof. Incredibly, today you can find even snakes on the roof. I don't know how they got there, but there's a lot of biodiversity in that roof. Plus, they have a facade that here there's not many plants because this image was taken when it was recently built. But today you can see green that is going up into that as a solar protection. It's a green that in the winter the leaves fall, and in the summer you can have very good protection against the sun. Next, please. Another concept is everyday life and community life. Here on the left, you see tactical urbanism. That means temporary solution. With a few planters and painting, they have very fast transformed the city. And this is the exit of a school. So the school children, when they go out and they run, they don't go directly to a road, but they are protected, and it's a much better safe space now. On the right, you can see a playground, and in Barcelona and in a few cities in Spain and all around Europe, they are having programs to share them, so to use the playgrounds as climate shelters and open the playgrounds outside school hours, open them for the rest of the people in the city. And on the bottom of the right side, you see a picture taken in Castellón, in El Grau. I call it guerrilla gardening. This is the garden of an elderly woman that lives in El Grau, and she uses abandoned space in the city to have their little garden and to take care of her plants. And I found this also very beautiful, very from the ground. Next, please. Finally, redistribution. On the left here, you see a city, and you see the disaggregation of wealthy neighborhoods and slums, and you see the amount of green in these two areas. We have to think about this, and we have to think also where the investment goes and try to redistribute it equally. On the right, on the top, you see the Pla de Barris, the neighborhood plans, also from Barcelona, and they have a program for distributing investment equally and prioritizing the most vulnerable neighborhoods. So it's also about thinking how the investment goes and how we can be equal and share equity in the city. Next, please. And final takeaways, let's try and let's encourage everyone to build cities where people and nature support each other, leaving no one behind. And there's a few takeaways here. So renaturalization is not just an ecological intervention, it's a tool for justice, health, and community resilience. When it's done inclusively, renaturalization ensures that the most vulnerable urban residents are not only protected but empowered through access to nature. Participatory sessions allow to integrate experiential and local knowledge in the process and build community resilience. Prioritizing vulnerable communities and investing in co-creation, not just in construction, that will be also an advice. And finally, embed gender diversity, equality, and inclusion in policy. That's all. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Blanca. That was great, and hopefully some really clear sort of instructions and takeaways that people can incorporate into their work and consider. So thank you very much. So moving on, next I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Elisa Peñalvo Lopez, a researcher and project manager with 2 decades of experience leading research and development collaborations across academia and industry. Her work focuses on decarbonising cities, energy communities, and smart energy systems. She's collaborated with major organisations across Europe and the US and held research fellowships in Rome, San Francisco, and Brussels. So Elisa, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for this kind presentation. As you mentioned, I'm going to just give an overview, a very short, brief overview of what will be the impact of vegetation in an urban environment. And then at the end, I will give you a few details of what is the impact of green roofs. So next, please. And next. So the first thing that we're going to focus is that I'm an energy engineer. So pretty much what we are doing is that trying to understand the impact of vegetation and what will be in the urban environment, but from the energy perspective, the energy performance of the urban areas. And this is, in that sense, we're going to evaluate what natural-based solutions are in the vegetation interventions are going to impact, what impact they're going to have into what will be the heat stress, especially because I'm from Valencia, and this is one of our main concerns. In that area, we are going to realize about the importance of deciding what kind of vegetation, but also focusing a little bit more on what will be the green roofs. We are going to realize that just adding this kind of installation or this kind of energy strategy can really give us a lot of benefits, not just from the energy perspective, but also as people, eco-benefits that we call it. Next, please. So in order to evaluate the heat stress evaluation, we have two indicators. Next. We have the physiological equivalent temperature. That is an index that is going to show how hot or cold the person feels in comparison with indoor and outdoor. And then the other index, that is a more general one, is the Universal Thermal Climate Index, that then we're going to express how the outdoor weather conditions feel in people. And in this case, we're going to take into consideration the air temperature, the humidity, the wind, the solar radiation, and the temperatures. It's true that with both indexes, we're going to have information, or we need information, or weather information, or data, meteorological data from many different sources in order to build the model that we have created for the pilot in Castellón. This is the mean radiant temperature that we have created using the software Solweight and the module UMIP. We developed a wind model in order to evaluate the impact and those indicators. And finally, we calculate the different maps of the different areas of the pilot that are involved in the pilot in Castellón in order to evaluate the impact of these two indicators. Next, please. So in order to give you an idea of what is the process that we have followed for the development of these maps, heat stress maps, taking into consideration these two indexes. In the first case, we have the loader. We are using LIDAR. That is a model for the vegetation surface model and the training that we can use from the National Geographic Institute. And also the land cover, that is is used for the geographical information. With all that, we have supported and combined this information with the data that we obtain from solar radiation. That is going to be one of the key indicators. And this is obtained from the European PVGIS, that is a platform for solar radiation, and is available, openly available. Next, please. To give you a little bit of context of the pilots, here you have Castellón is in the northern place, in the northern region of Valencia, and we have identified 3 different small areas within the neighborhood. That is the Grado of Castellón, where we have implemented, or we have developed the intervention. Here are 3 small pictures of what has been the development. As you can see, initially there was not much shadow, or there was not much vegetation involved in these pilots, and we evaluated, or we analyzed what is the difference between having vegetation and not having vegetation. Next. Going and focusing in each one of them. This is the first one, is the Casal Jove. It's totally an open space. Then it's a building with a small vegetation. And we have identified 3 different specific trees. And at the end of the street, we have also the park, where you can see here in the slide that you can find many different tree species. Next. Evaluating and running the model in these 3 areas, we were able to analyze in a summertime specifically in 2022 and July 25. What was the impact in terms of the mean radiant temperature? And with this you can realize that how high were the temperatures in those areas. Obviously, in the part where we have the trees, it was lower, but we can find how the stress, we can envisage the heat stress that can be, that is going to be impacting in the other two. Next. In this, we also developed the urban wind model that is going to help us to evaluate the other two indicators, as I mentioned before, the thermal comfort for the citizens in the neighborhood. Next. And at the end, we obtain the final map that includes and takes into consideration, as I mentioned, temperature, radiation, wind, humidity, etc., in order to understand what will be the critical areas associated for the PIT. And here we can identify how the Casal Jove has specific points where needed action from our side, and also even in the park, because in the areas where we didn't have vegetation, there's a critical space, especially for vulnerable groups like kids or elderly. Next. Analyzing in the park the 2 points, we wanted to understand the difference of having vegetation and not having vegetation, and we decided to get this critical space, as I mentioned, in the park, because it's very it's a very used space. It's a park where elderly and children come together, and if they are not in the specific in the specific areas of the region or the park, we can see major differences. So here we have selected point 22, that is one of the points of interest, that it will be under the canopy, and the other point 162, that it will be just being in the middle plane in the kid in the ground plane. And with that, we have identified, we have analyzed the difference between the two. If we go next, please. And you can see that in summer you have a huge difference. In the case, you can reach almost 25 degrees in terms of the playground, while when you are or you have vegetation, this is reduced at 24. That is kind of is much easier to deal with in these areas. So you can see here that in summertime it's really key to place the vegetation in the right place, and with a lot of impact in health, no? Because for us here in Valencia, with these temperatures, the heat stress is being one of the important issues, one significant and important issue. Next. If we check in the winter, during the winter, we can also see that you have a different curve or a different function in both for summer and winter, and also for under the canopy or without canopy. And as expected, in this case, you can identify that you have a higher temperature when you are not under the canopy, but you are in the playground. But besides this specific from 12 to 3, that is the critical time slot, you have very similar temperatures. Next. If we focus now in the integration of green roofs in buildings, then we have realized, next, that from our experimental green roofs that we have put in place and that we have analyzed through the years, we have identified that here in Valencia you can obtain between 10 and 20% of annual savings, depending if it's heating or cooling, and our CO2 emission savings associated to the electrical mix. So considering this, at the end, with the experiments and the pilot that we have in the different areas, we have concluded to the following. Next, please. That here we compare a building is one floor building, okay, with and without a green roof. And the one that didn't have green roof had a gravel in the top region. In comparing these two, we have identified the temperature profiles. So you can see that in the gravel, we receive a heat storage effect that increases the temperature in the roof and therefore is translated or transferred to the inside of the building, while in the green, having a green roof, this effect is softened. Therefore, we can obtain a power demand reduction of 25% in Valencia. Next, if we now move to what will be the winter. In the winter, it's true that the temperatures are a little bit different, but still the curve of the temperatures is softened, and despite we have similar power demands, it's true that it's easier to handle a softened function in order to deal with climatization or air conditioning. So from this, at least here in the pilot that we have developed in the Valencian region, that includes Valencia, Castellón, and Alicante, we have realized that the impact of having green roof is very, very satisfactory, and we can reach at around 25% of power reduction. And next, this is all from my side, so I'm happy to respond any questions.
Thank you so much, Elisa. That's really well demonstrated that these systems aren't just in place for aesthetic beauty, but they're really powerful tools to reduce carbon emissions, improving building energy efficiency, and also to make things in those places in those hotter cities much more comfortable for the people who live there. So thank you so much for taking us through that. We're going to move on to the first Q&A session. I can't see anything in the Q&A so far, so I don't know if anybody has any questions for either Blanca or Elisa. I don't know if any of the other panelists have any questions that you want to ask them. If not, we can move swiftly on to the next section if people don't have any, and maybe more questions will come up later on. If you have any for Blanca or Elisa, we could also answer them in the second part of the Q&A. So I think, if I can't see any there, I think we'll just move on. Oh, Blanca, actually, Blanca has a yes, go for it.
Just a comment for Elisa. I found the presentation really enlightening in the sense that I could see the analysis, the thermal analysis in the park, for example, and how the space for children is really, really, really hot in summer. And it could be beneficial in winter, but it's right in the hours that they are inside the school. So it gives us a lot of information to try to design it differently. And that was also good that in the project diversity, we didn't have enough budget to design a protection for this space, but we actually placed a couple of benches underneath the canopy tree, underneath the 0.22 that you were mentioning. At least there's a couple of benches for the people to sit down under a little bit of shade. But you know, this space is almost not possible to be used in summer months. And these analyses are really, really, really useful. Thank you for sharing this methodology.
Thank you, Blanca. I think this is very interesting to have evidence of what is happening, and also try to design the urban space, not just from the heat perspective, but also for summer, as you mentioned, because you realize that in the playground where the kids exactly have the different equipment to play, and the columpios and things like that, you don't have protection. So we should take that into consideration. And in the same way, during the winter, trying to use vegetation to deal with the wind and also low temperatures and humidity, that you know that we have a lot of humidity here in our region.
Thanks, Elisa. Maybe it's worth also to mention that we also placed a fountain in diversity in that space to cope a little bit with the stress, the heat stress. And also it would be nice to to also think about the materials used for the games, for the children games, because most of the times they are steel, and probably the temperature. So if the air temperature is about 40 something degrees that I was seeing in your analysis, the surface temperature of the playgrounds are like, it could be even burning the skin of the children. Thanks, Elisa.
Blanca, I can see there's actually a question in the chat for you from Daria. And she says, how did you determine the needs specific to different categories of people in your community?
Thank you, Daria. This is the whole project of diversity. So it's a very, very, very good question. So during the whole process of diversity, what we did first is to identify the different demographic groups and to involve them in a co-creation process. So first we were trying to understand their challenges and their needs. We were doing in all the different cities of the project diversity, we were doing exploratory walks. So walking around the city, discovering the challenges. For example, with the group of functional diversity, we were walking around and we were understanding the challenges of going around a city in a wheelchair or with a stick, because some people had lack of sight, they were blind. So running out in the city and with these challenges, suddenly we understand that we have to take care of this. We also involved the young people, women, young women, elderly people. So it was interesting to check and understand the challenges for each one of them, and to understand also their wishes and their experiential knowledge. So during their everyday activities, they're facing these challenges and in specific points of the city. So we were collecting all this information and using it in the process of design.
Thank you, Blanca.
Thank you, Adele.
I don't think there are any other questions for now, so I think we'll move on to section 2. So I would like to next introduce Mary Bowman. So Mary's a founding partner as Gustafsson, Porter and Bowman. She has a background in both architecture and landscape architecture, and she brings a unique perspective to the design of the built environment. She was leading on the design team for the Eiffel Tower landscape project in Paris, and her portfolio includes iconic projects like the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fountain and Valencia Park Central. So Mary, over to you.
Next slide.
You should be unmuted now.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, yeah. Thank you very much. So I'll be talking to you today about an inclusive approach through the gender lens. And I'll sort of talk a little bit about why gender, and then talk a little bit about some of the projects that we've been working on. And then I will also discuss a little bit about the Equilibrium Network and what we can do and how we can provide support. Next. So as everybody probably knows, 50 or 51% of the population are women, yet women and girls are still underrepresented in the design of the built environment. I think when I graduated from my course in the late 80s, I think about 9% of women were in the UK were registered architects. Now I understand it's about 31%, but across Europe, the percentage is more like 45. And I suspect that's because there are a lot of smaller practices where women are able to better balance professional lives and personal lives in a smaller practice, perhaps as a sole practitioner or working in a couple. than in a much larger organization where it's sometimes being more difficult. But I think things are all moving in the right direction, so that's great. But there's obviously the Equilibrium network exists because we feel that there's still a lot of work to do. Next. So I think I've been fortunate to work on some very interesting projects, and projects really start with strong leaders and with a very clear vision. So for policymakers and people working in government, people that are writing briefs for architects, landscape architects, engineers to develop the built environment, it's really important to have a strong and clear vision and a very thought through brief about what you want. And the women here, Anne Hidalgo, obviously the mayor of Paris, she had a very clear vision about wanting to green the city, the 15-minute city, doorstep play. You know, it was a kind of fundamental part of her policy. Rita Barberá, she was the mayor of Valencia for many, many years, from the 80s through the 90s. And again, she had a very clear vision about her city and how she wanted the city to be seen, and all the, incredible, the sort of the wealth of environmental richness, the sort of the produce, the proximity to the sea, the proximity to the mountains, the culture that was there, the historical culture that was there. Very proud of that. And then, of course, the mayor of Valencia today, Maria José Catalá, also has a strong vision about infrastructure, green infrastructure, and culture within the city. And it doesn't matter if you're from the left or from the right, or if you agree with the politics, or, because that will always be a part of it. Or if you're the same political party, of same persuasion. I think what's important is that leaders are very clear about what they want, and they can interpret that in a brief for then professionals to interpret that. Next. So these are some of the projects, and I think, again, it's about understanding the vision of the mayor or the politician, the people that are involved in the project. For Paris, the brief was literally written into the brief: discover, approach, visit. How do you get people, Parisians, to come back to this area around the Eiffel Tower that has been sort of taken over by tourists over the years? Had a lot of, environmentally quite damaged, a lot of compaction, barriers around the Eiffel Tower, no place to put your litter, no toilets, no water, no facilities. How do you recreate that, respecting the history, but really bring people back so they want to reapproach, revisit, and come back, year after year. And in the case of Valencia, I think Rita Barberá, she loved flowers, she loved pink, and she had a strong vision about wanting to create this park on top of a railway project. It was a major infrastructure project, bringing the railway, high-speed railway, underground into the back of the central station, creating a whole new 23-hectare park on top. But again, she had the vision, and she was able to explain what her desires and her, view was for the future of her city. And the same with the current mayor of Valencia, I think, also with a strong vision about greening, and how you give identity to your city based on the strengths that your city has. So really understanding the vision of the city is very important. Every city is unique. Next. Then the other thing is really to build a good team. I think whenever we're working on these projects, particularly internationally, it's really important to build a good team and to understand what everybody's strengths and weaknesses are. And quite often when we're working abroad in European cities or in Asia or wherever, you need to rely on local knowledge and people that understand the politics, people understand the local context, people that understand just what's going on in the ground, what people want, how people feel, etc. And in the case of the Eiffel Tower project, as you can see here, I was always really, it was interesting to me that Anne Hidalgo was obviously the mayor of Paris, but the team, the project management team and the team within the city were almost, where they were predominantly female, young women in their 20s, 30s, early 40s, running these projects with great enthusiasm. And is that because you have a woman as a mayor, or, you know, or not? I don't know, but certainly it's the case that on the client side, predominantly women, and also, as you can see here on our team, also predominantly women. Catherine and I led the project, and our local landscape architect is female, our project architect is female, our very brilliant person who is the civil engineer, who is a young woman, fantastic. And then, but also having a good balance of male and female, I think is really important, and just getting different perspectives about the public realm and how one works together on these large projects. Next. Work collaboratively, and when the reason for putting up this image is that this is the area around the Fountain of Varsovie, which has just been reopened last week after the Olympics, now filled with people in the fountain and playing on the slopes and so on. But it takes, to do these projects, it's not just about planting some trees and some roses and some grass. There is so much that goes on building in cities. It involves, public transport. This project was about pedestrianizing a large area of Paris, so that when you came out at the top at Trocadero and moved across this bridge, you were in a relatively traffic-free environment. And that involves a lot of work with the transport team, mobility studies, and so on. You have a whole underground network of historical cables and ducts and things that you don't even know are underground. You need to work with the parks and gardens to ensure that, what we're doing, even though it's a contemporary reinterpretation, is respectful of the historic context, because we're working within a UNESCO heritage site. And then there's the relationship with the historic monuments, and then the architectural elements that are being inserted into these. So you're working across many, many different departments within a city, and you have to be able to understand what each of those departments need. They don't always talk to each other. Almost in no city do you get a case where people are really crossing departments. I think the best city that I've worked in where that is the case is probably in Singapore, where they seem to have maybe because it's smaller, I don't know, but just a better cross-disciplinary coordination that goes on between the different departments. And then, of course, there's the collaboration within the team. Next. And I think another thing is just about understanding the complexity that goes into these projects, just the technical complexity of landscape and designing in the public realm. It's not just superficial, it goes deep into the ground, and most of the hard work is done in the ground and involves a lot of engineering, a lot of different disciplines, and a lot of calculation, technical coordination that goes on behind it. So, if depending on the size of the project, you obviously need different members of teams that get involved with each of the projects. And on these larger projects, they're obviously much more complex. Even soils become complex. How do you hold a steep bank that's that steep? So I think understanding complexity, very, very important. Next. And then I think women do play a crucial role in the success of nature-based solutions. I mean, my feeling is that women have always had, been associated with nature as protectors of nature, and so on. And I think you see that if you look around at just who's involved and right the way through to Indigenous women working to protect vast areas of the Amazon and so on. Women have been pretty key to this whole push for greening our cities. And I think, I haven't done a study on it, but I'm sure there's a study there somewhere. So, I mean, I think lessons learned are really for policymakers and people that are thinking about their cities and how to change them and how to green them. Just, be very clear about what your ambitions are, understand what the needs are, build a good team around you, work collaboratively, understand the complexity. And next slide, please. And of course, sometimes help and support is needed for some of these things. And in particular, I think the Equilibrium Network has been involved in diversity, always sort of trying to push the agenda for women and girls, and to right the way through the design and sort of procurement process. And if you look on the website, Adele, next slide, you will see a number of well, sorry, you skipped over, but policy recommendations. So if you go on and go into the policy recommendations, you'll see an EQN mentoring toolkit that was developed specifically for diversity, which will help. It can be, it can be anybody. There's somebody running an architectural practice and an engineering practice, or people in business or policymakers, to review your own operational practices and structures and give some guidelines. How can you embed equality, diversity, inclusion in your own organizations? And, we should all be looking to our own organizations before we're, advising or reaching out to others. Acknowledge planetary responsibilities, encourage active learning, and, within staff and with your group, and develop an inspirational leadership program. So how are we training our younger architects, landscape architects, people that are just at the beginning of their career? Next. And then these are just some recap on the resources that you can find on the EQN website. So the action plan, the mentoring toolkit, the ethical code, and the charter, which are all really useful documents, I think, for any organization. Thank you.
I'm on mute. Thank you very much, Mary. That's given a really sort of well-rounded overview. And I think the key points I took away from that were the collaboration. It's actually all about collaboration, isn't it? It's the communication, the collaboration, the listening. It's all part of making a good team, and all part of making sure everything's inclusive and including everybody. So thank you very much for that. If anybody has any questions for Mary, please put them into the Q&A, and we can ask those at the end of these 3 sessions. So moving on, I would like to introduce Seda Yontem. So Seda is an architect and sustainability consultant with over 20 years of international experience. She's the co-founder of Ecowise and the recently launched Ecolocus Urban Innovations Lab in London. Seda works at the intersection of architecture, data, and strategy to support cities in advancing climate goals and inclusive urban development. She's led projects across Europe and Asia, and brings a strong focus on well-being, equity, and lasting urban transformation. Seda, over to you.
Thank you for your kind introduction, Adele. Hello, everyone. My name is Seda Yontem. I'm an architect and, as Adele mentioned, co-founder of Ecowise, a diversity project partner. We are an interdisciplinary team of data scientists, engineers, architects, and urban planners. In the diversity project, we led the development of the diversity and inclusion data management framework, which is designed to guide our multi-layered assessments throughout the project. So I'd like to begin by giving a reference to Hans Rosling, who is a globally recognized public educator whose work draws our attention to the misconceptions we hold about global health, poverty, and development that reveals the importance of data. In diversity, we aim to go beyond statistics, co-create data with communities, and uncover the human stories behind the numbers. Our goal was to turn that insight to better decisions for urban interventions. So let me show you how we did it. Next, please, Adele. Today, I'll walk you through the key components of our methodology, because we truly believe that data-driven, inclusive, nature-based solutions are not only possible, but also essential for greener, fairer cities. We were fortunate to bring together a wide range of expertise across the consortium to support the complex assessments needed. I usually enjoy diving deep into data management, but conscious of time, I'll keep things focused on our approach today and to be a little less boring. For those interested in technical details, they are available in our public deliverables on our Diversity Project website. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Next, please. Yeah, here we start with the big question, why? As we all are aware, cities today are facing interlinked crises, with climate change, air pollution, social inequality leading the way. Nature-based solutions are a promising response, but how do we ensure that they benefit everyone? That requires evidence, and not just only evidence, but evidence that's reliable, inclusive, and reflective of diverse needs. Next, please. To build meaningful evidence, we first had to face the limitations of existing data in our pilot cities. One of our key inspirations was Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. She powerfully illustrates how data gaps and biases have shaped a built environment that often fails to serve everyone equally. We saw this as a call to action to ask better questions and uncover the hidden blind spots, including missing voices answering these questions. And when it comes to how we approach data, I often refer to this short but insightful video by Richard Murphy on YouTube. In it, he reads the poem, "How many poets does it take to change a light bulb?" This is a playful yet profound reminder that solving complex problems require creative, non-linear thinking. That's exactly the mindset we adopted in shaping our data strategy in diversity. And for those who are wondering, a little spoiler, the answer is 10. Check it out in YouTube. Next one, please. In response to the project's complexity, we adopted a layered approach to data collection. We explored local data sources in each pilot city and added 4 complementary layers. Fixed and mobile sensors gathered air quality data. Residents participated in mapping hotspots, needs, and assets. This is also related to the question Daria has asked previously. Diversity app that's developed within the scope of the project anonymously tracked mobility and public space use and rewarding engagement and behavior change. Finally, we had the tailored questionnaires that captured social, health, and economic impacts on different demographics. So throughout this journey, we aim to expose data gaps and we addressed biases. Next one, please. But collecting data wasn't enough, and we needed to make sense of it. So to do this, we developed a data ontology, a structured approach to integrate diverse data sets across environmental, health, and social domains. This allowed our pilot cities to draw meaningful connections between seemingly separate issues. For example, a data ontology can allow a city to correlate high NO2 levels in specific neighborhoods with increased asthma cases among children from low-income households, guiding targeted green infrastructure interventions. These links are really crucial for understanding the full picture. And we also created interactive dashboards like the one shown here to visualize these relationships. For example, this one connecting health outcomes with their environmental and social determinants in an accessible and actionable way. Next one, please. So our framework provided a set of key performance indicators across social, environmental, and economic domains, data requirements and availability analysis, ethical guidance and privacy protocols, and a step-by-step data collection and management guidelines that is fully GDPR compliant. All of this supports evidence-based impact assessment. Transforming data into actionable insights was really our key focus. For example, we've developed assessment narratives like the one on screen. This one responds to a key question: how might our interventions affect air quality related health and productivity across different demographic groups? Next one, please. We used our framework to ensure we collected the right data, reached the underrepresented groups, build a robust system for inclusive decision-making. And here is our motto: inclusivity starts by asking the right questions and listening to everyone. Next one, please. Needless to say, we faced our fair share of bumps in the road. Administrative problems, tight budgets, seasonal limitations, participant fatigue, and technological gaps were some of them. And the important issue of the data privacy needs were at the core of our assessments, although they were causing complexities. So each one of these challenges called for a tailored response, and this changed from city to city sometimes. But thanks to a layered community-driven strategies, we didn't just navigate these challenges, but we turned them into learning opportunities. Next one. Like David McCandless, who keeps inspiring us with his books on data visualization, we believe that data is beautiful when it tells a story. It is also helpful for us providing evidence for our design and planning decisions. You heard from Elisa how we can improve climatic and thermal conditions of an urban space using trees and how we can quantify this improvement. And you heard from Blanca the need for prioritization of public investments. And we can use data for these purposes. Here on the screen, you can get a hint of the structure of our data management framework. We created templates to unify data collection activities across our pilot cities in order to have comparable results in the end. Through visuals, storytelling, and accessible dashboards, we transformed complex data sets into narratives people could connect with. And this is where the magic happens, in my opinion, when numbers become meaning in the end, guiding us for improving our cities. These interactive data visualizations you see on the top right of the screen is the outcome of this exciting process. Next one, please. So a few key messages I'd like to leave you with today. Impact assessments are essential. They help us understand what's working and for whom. Data must reflect both environmental and social realities. Community involvement turns data into stories, building trust and guiding better policies. And this helps us change the current top-down decision-making models as well. Inclusive data is just, representative, and equitable data, and just data leads to more just cities. For more detailed readings, as I mentioned, there are our deliverables, but also a huge amount of guiding literature, such as this recently published guide from UN, which aligns closely with our diversity data management approach. Next one, please. I wish to conclude with this slide that captures our complex, challenging, and beautiful journey through diversity. This graphic illustrates what have been stated so far in previous presentations, our processes. We began by clearly defining the problems and continued with a strong focus on inclusive data, stakeholder collaboration, adaptive technologies, and ethical governance. Along the way, we embraced iteration, shared transparent insights, and finally developed guidance for adaptive planning. So let's keep asking the right questions and listen carefully to all the answers. I wish you all regenerative and inclusive journeys in your own cities. Thank you. And yes, it's possible.
Thank you very much, Seda. That was really sort of showed the importance of gathering the right data and how just creating those robust platforms and systems and methodologies really underpins everything. And as you said, that's where the magic happens. So yeah, thank you very much. So last but not least, I am delighted to introduce Jordi Quiñonero, a sociologist specializing in urban form, community development, and participatory planning. With over 20 years' experience in strategic planning and social research, Jordi is co-founder and technical director of Mono de Studio. He's dedicated to designing collaborative methods that bring diverse voices into urban decision-making and currently serves on the board of directors of the Catalan Society of Spatial Planning. Jordi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Adele. Okay, thanks everyone for being here with us this afternoon. Okay, your topic is governance, and we are going to talk about governance using the example of MBS as an urban project. And next, please. We have here the contents. First of all, we are going to have a brief definition of what is governance, and the one that interests us more, that is participatory governance. Then we will define the basic elements of this participatory governance, and then we explain a bit how to start the process of create these structures of governance. Next, please. Okay, first with the definition, we understand governance as this way in which decision-making process is managed and the accountability of those decisions. So what we think that is governance is this link between the decision-making and the accountability. It's putting people together to take decisions, to make decisions, and how these decisions are explained to the public in order to everyone to be aware of what is happening in the project. But this governance is only governance, but we want to talk about participatory governance. And when we talk about participatory governance, we need to have an element of balance. The participatory governance is putting everyone involved in the same room to take these decisions, not only the public administrations, not only the companies, not only the social entities, not only the civil society. It's putting all together and make them understand that there is no one more important than the other in this structure. Okay, next one. If we dig a bit in these definitions and in the role of the governance of urban projects is something that is very, very important because it's governance at the local level. The MBS projects, the urban projects are developed in this local level, in the level that is close to the citizens. It makes this governance having a greater importance, but at the same time, a greater difficulty. And this difficulty is because of the representativeness of those that are involved in the governance. Why is it a difficulty? In our opinion, it's because we are putting in the same room people that more or less know each other, and they have their own conflicts, and they have their own interest. And we need to make them understand that they are all working for the same goal in this kind of structures. And this is very important, and we will go back on this in the next slides. If we have this common understanding that everyone in the room is necessary to develop this governance, then we have something that is fundamental in the definition of ambient projects and urban projects in general. That is that we have an inclusive governance or an inclusive project design. And this is something that impacts on participatory culture, because people understand that governance is collaborating, and then they understand as well that collaborate is something that is useful. So if you are calling me again to another experience of participatory process or governance or so on, I will go because I understand that it's something that is useful for me and for my neighborhood or for the environment. Okay, next. Okay, what are the defining elements of participatory governance? We have, first of all, and this is very important for public administrations because more or less they have the power to move this kind of structures, to create this kind of structures, but they have to understand that this is the only moment in which they are controlling the process. Once they have the structure created, the first step is that governance is about share and give part of this decision-making power. This is something that usually have the public administration, that they decide what is going to be done or not. But if you are starting a governance, participatory governance, you need to share part of this decision-making power. So it's quite important that you ensure that everyone in the room is representing and responding on different interests. So you have this inclusive and participatory governance is something that have been told by Blanca at the beginning. We need to have all these people to have this holistic view of the projects. Then the second one is something that it's related with administration too, and it's about this integrated governance and this integrated point of view, this holistic approach of the projects. Historically, in the administration, we have silos. We have a lot of departments that have their own responsibilities, and it's quite infrequent that they talk each other. Okay, I'm the one who has this contract of this project, and it's all on me. We need to make them understand that we need to cross borders with all these departments that are related to the projects. For example, an NBS project is not only about urbanism or design, it's about inclusivity, it's about sustainability and so on, and we need everyone there to have this structure of governance. Then the next one is understand that participatory governance should basically address decision-making in 4 aspects: planning, what we are going to do; monitoring, how we are going to control what we are doing; evaluation, how we are going to measure them; and transparency, how we are going to communicate, how we are going to show what we are doing to the public, to those that are not involved, but they have the right to know what is happening. Then it's quite important to develop these structures or governance, and this developing try to generate trust among the stakeholders. Because if there is one of them that believe that this structure is not working with him, it's against them, then we are going to break the structure. Then we are going to start not taking time to have the right the right decisions, and we start and useful debates, and people always using the structure just to express how angry they are with what is happening. So we need to generate trust, and we will see how we're going to do that in the next slide. And the last one is, it's a high important defining element of participatory governance, is promote the autonomy. It's allow those that are participating to learn and be informed, and again, improve this culture and make them understand that being in these structures, participate in this project is something that is useful and is good for everyone. Next, please. Okay, how we implement this participatory governance. First of all, we need to have a stakeholders map, and you can create it with a lot of techniques of social research, focus groups, I don't know, workshops, wherever you want to do. And then you can use this data and use this information that you have to create organizational charts or graphic visualizations like the one that we have in the right of the slide. And these visualizations are important because it shows you what is balance or unbalance in your network of stakeholders. For example, here we have a map for one of our projects, and we have the sector of innovation has only one representative. So if you need to push to have someone on board, is this one, because if this one is not on board, no one is going to talk about innovation. And for example, for social and community, you have a lot, and you can play with the balance and unbalance of your grid of entities and representatives. And then these stakeholders will be elected because they are significant for the topic. They have a lot of representativeness, not only quantitative. Small groups can be high qualitative representative because they have a very specialized work. And maybe you can choose them because they are very, very close to the topic or very, very close to the space in which we are going to develop the project, or for representing integral topics, for example, gender or inclusion or accessibility or so on. Next. And the last one is how we are going to start the process and what are the recommendations. First of all, you need to contact the stakeholders. You call new ones if this structure is something that you're creating from scratch, or you reactivate the existing ones if this structure of governance is something that came from, for example, a previous co-design process. You call the same ones, maybe you can complete the structure with new comms, but more or less, if you have nothing if you have not done nothing for this MBS project, and this is something that you begin from the scratch, you need to call new ones, and you need more time than if you are going to reactivate the existing ones. Then you need to raise the basic elements of a structure and the red lines. It's just a matter of asking two questions. What are we going to do together, and what are we not going to do together? And this is something that is very, very necessary because you need to manage the expectations. And this is something that creates trust or not. If someone in the room believes that it's going to happen something that never is going to happen, these people will be frustrated, and they again are going to start a lot of debates and explain what is happening because it's not happening that I want to be happening in this structure. So it's quite necessary to define these red lines. Once you have that, you can create consensus about the organs. Are we going to work just with plenary sessions, with small working groups? What are the composition of these groups? What are the objectives, functions, calendars? Are we going to work once a week, once a year, once a month? And then build together the indicators, how we are going to measure. It's something that is nice to build with everybody involved in the governance structure. And then if it's necessary, all these agreements could be defined in an internal code. a recommendation is that it's always necessary. It's you need to have this internal code, because it's a way to avoid these debates of what was said months ago, and it's a nice tool for the newcomers. You can share this one, and they understand what we are doing in this structure of governance. And that, based on this agreement, the structure begins to work and fulfills its functions. Next. Okay, there's some resources. The three first ones are in Spanish, but now you have a lot of artificial intelligence tools to translate it. There's no problem. And the last one is classical text and very well known by everyone about urban governance. And next, that's all. I think, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jordi, rounding everything off very nicely with the very important part of the governance. So we have a couple of questions that I can see in the chat. The first of which is for Mary. And the question is, how are vegetation species selected at the design stage for the various projects that you do?
Well, the selection usually starts with an analysis of daylight and sunlight and the number of daylight hours. We use 3D models to do that, to see that, normally you're in a built context. So are the buildings overshadowing a certain area? How many hours of daylight will that particular area get? And that will allow us to know whether we can specify shade-tolerant plants and trees or sun-loving plants and trees. And then we usually develop a character palette. That is, how do we want that space to feel? Is it very formal? Is it more informal? Do we want it to be loose? What exactly is the character of the space? And then we start to put together plant lists that can satisfy that criteria. And then we usually look at it from a formal point of view. Where are the view corridors? What do we want to frame? How do you create the three-dimensional structure? So, tall plants in back, shorter plants in front, trees that aren't going to block view corridors. And then we put together loads and loads of plant lists. We look at the color mixes and the texture mixes and that kind of thing. And then we usually work, in the case of the city of Paris, they have a parks and gardens, they have their own plant specialists. And they will say, we don't want to use that species, or we think that this would be a better selection. And we also, a lot of times we're being asked to use native planting, but of course, native planting with climate change isn't always the most appropriate planting. We're moving in Europe more into, Mediterranean planting for the more northern climes because of climate change. And then you usually have to make sure that you have a good mix of evergreen plants, so it's going to look great in the wintertime as well as the summertime. So there are a lot of different factors that go into the plant selection, and you really need experts in that field, horticultural experts and your own internal planting experts within your teams. But it's a very specialist area.
Thank you very much, Mary. I think as a lover of plants, my house is full of them. I think I could hear you talk about that all day long. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for that. And the other question that we have is for Seda. And the question is, how can we identify biased data if we're not the experts?
Thank you, Adele. There are always ways to understand if data is representative, even if we're not experts. I can tell that good data is transparent data. So we know how it is collected, which segments does it reflect, and for what purposes it is collected. So if we have a problem and we need data, we can have several checklists to identify if data is representative and inclusive or not biased. We can check how it is collected. For example, is it self-reported via surveys? If the questions were clear, if the participation was diverse enough. And we can check the sample size and diversity. So the more examples we have, the better accurate data we are going to have. And yeah, as I said, who has collected and for what purposes it is collected, it is really crucial because it can be misleading. It can be greenwashing or other misconceptions we have in the world today, unfortunately. And just a maybe example, if we are collecting data about mobility, we need to have all segments to have a clear answer, such as we need to have children, elderly, disabled people that moves in different ways. In the city that I lived for many years, I only realized it doesn't work for everyone when I had a baby and had to move around in the city center with a buggy. So if the decision makers had listened to enough people, they would design it or make changes accordingly, I guess.
Thank you very much, Seda. Very thorough answer to that question. Thank you. So I don't think we don't seem to have any more questions, and I think we are running out of time. So just before everybody goes, I would like to just tell you about the upcoming event that we have on next week. It's brought to you by EQN, the Equilibrium Network, who, as you know, Mary's already talked about, but they're one of the consortium partners of diversity. And in this event, we'll be asking, what does it really take to build inclusive cities, and why does it matter now more than ever? We'll be sharing insights from across the UK and Europe, celebrating EQN's work on the diversity project, and hosting a panel discussion featuring inspiring case studies and replicable practices. Thank you to Blanca, Elisa, Mary, Seda, and Jordi for your really thoughtful presentations today. It's been really insightful, and I'm sure everybody will have learned a lot from your presentations. Thank you to the audience for participating, and we hope to see you at future events. So I would like to wish you all a wonderful day, and thank you very much, and goodbye.